In Job 9, Job begins 2 chapters of response to the friend last speaking with him, which was Bildad. He opens in verse 2 by affirming what Bildad has just said. Let's back up and take a look at that at the end of chapter 8. He has said, verse 20, "See, God will not reject a blameless person." Verse 21, "He will yet fill your mouth with laughter." 22, "Those who hate you will be clothed with shame." So as long as you're righteous, things are going to work out okay. And now in chapter 9, Job says, "I know that's right. But there is a problem." And notice how powerful is this concession or this question in the second portion of verse 2. How can a mortal be just before God? I wonder if he's remembering what the first speaker said, the first friend said, which was in essence, no one can be absolutely free of unrighteousness before God. What I'm thinking of is chapter 4, verse 17, and it's the vision or dream that was reported by Eliphaz. Chapter 4:17, "Can mortals be righteous before God?" In Hebrew, the language of 9:2b, and the previous verse chapter 4, verse 17a, is close enough to be virtually a quote. The term for God is slightly different, El in chapter 9 and Eloah in chapter 4. And the word order is slightly different, but otherwise it's a virtual quote. So it seems like Job is throwing back in Bildad's face this problem. He says, yeah, good and well for you to say that good guys win, but none of us are good guys. So that one kind of falls to the ground, doesn't it? And I believe that we see the hopelessness of making a case for one's own innocence before God. The hopelessness of this seems to continue as we move down into verse 3. "If one wished to contend with him," we see Job continuing, "one could not answer him once in 1,000. So there's no possibility of coming up against God and arguing one's case. Chapter 9, verse 16 is worth observing. And here it continues to depict for us Job's conclusion that God is invincible and, frankly, unapproachable. Verse 16, "If I summoned him," that is, if I, in a sense, drew God into court, "and he answered me," he were to take up my case, respond, "I do not believe that he would listen to my voice. For he crushes me with a tempest and multiplies my wounds without cause." I don't have a ghost of a chance of having a sit-down, clear the air, honest conversation about my innocence with God. And now notice verse 22. This is a huge allegation. "It is all one, therefore I say, he, that is God, destroys both the blameless and the wicked." This is the theology to which Job has come based on what he's viewing in his own experience. And now turn to 32 of chapter 9. "For he is not a mortal as I am, that I might answer him, that we should come to trial together. There's no umpire between us who may lay his hand on both of us, someone to adjudicate a case. If he would take his rod away from me and not let dread of him terrify me, then I would speak without fear of him. For I know I am not what I am thought to be." I am thought to be guilty. I know I am not, is the implication of this. So we see here in chapter 9, Job is coming to the conclusion that the chance for, in essence, a day in court with God, a situation where he can fairly present his case and be rewarded for the innocence that he knows characterizes his life, that this just won't happen. In chapter 10, he addresses God directly, and we find him expressing his hopelessness with words such as in verse 5, "Are your days like the days of mortals? your years like human years? That you seek out my iniquity and search for my sin. Verse 7, although you know I'm not guilty. Isn't that quite a statement? And there is no one to deliver out of your hand. I may be innocent, but I have no rescue because you are making a power play against me. And you're invincible, as was mentioned in chapter 9. Verse 16, here again, Job articulates how he feels that God is set against him. Notice the imagery. Bold as a lion, you hunt me. You repeat your exploits against me. And in verse 18, through the end, we find Job reiterating his wish that his life had never begun in the first place.